special session on August the 1st at 9 a.m. Members present are Gary Matthews, Charles Vance, Charles McCann. I'm calling the meeting to order, and the first thing that we have is the approval of the budget revision to the state auditor's office for $175,000 for the lower water project.
I'll move.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That being unanimous, motion carries. Next thing on the,
I was just gonna say, we're just putting that in a line item for that, right?
yeah, it's
That's
gonna
what-
be, we're transferring this from contingencies to the line item for the lower Mud River water. That's actually, I think that's the account right there.
Okay, thanks.
The next is the Lincoln EMS wanting the 14 Mile Mountain EMS station, and they would like the property transferred to the EMS. Currently, we have, I guess we are the fiduciaries for the property. They are paying they're paying the bills on that property. Now, you all know more about this than what I do. Trish Watson called me and she asked me if it would be possible, if the commission would entertain us actually transferring that asset to them.
Yeah, the way that thing came about, just to help out a little bit, the building went into a family inheritance issue, and they wanted to sell it in order to close the estate. And back in the day when each Hearts, Midkiff, and all of them had their own ambulance authority, they had money there at Hearts to spend on that purpose. The ambulance was gone, so they agreed to give us their money that they had set aside. And the county commission picked up the difference and bought it. Basically, it's in the county commission's name, the property for the building.
Do you remember how much we spent for that?
I think about $90,000.
That's what I was thinking, 90,000.
When was it?
That was probably 08, somewhere way back there. And we paid to have it remodeled, make it into sleeping areas and showers and that kind of thing for the animals. But we definitely don't need it, the commission, I don't think. But I guess the only question I have any problem other than, can we do that? I mean, do we know for sure we can do that? I mean, legally, whatever. Did Gaypart ever?
Yeah. Back in May of last year, this came about, and we sent it up to Jim to review, and it didn't send a response. They did yesterday, a memo. He just sent a memo of sale or transfer of county property to someone. And so it's in there, but yeah, I think he could do it. He thinks he could do it.
And there's not enough area for a tower behind that, is there, or anything like that?
No.
That's all, okay. I mean,
Is it just
that's
that
all-
one
Because I think our
building, that's that
original
one
thinking,
spot?
or I'd thought maybe that might also be used for near a tower, or for a tower site or whatever, things like that.
Yeah, it doesn't go very far back there, the chain link fence with a line.
Right, right.
There's a house, old house behind it.
Right.
But it's about run down, but it's not in hard.
Okay. I don't have any problems with it if you all don't. I mean,
You don't have
know.
water up there, we have
Right.
a cistern.
Right.
They
Just
buy
to-
drinking water.
Sorry, just to put in here, if you were selling it to someone else, you'd have to do a public auction, but there's actually a provision in here that says if it's conveyed to the volunteer fire department or an ambulance service. That is, now it does also say that if it's ever sold, it needs to be reverted back to the county commission.
We could do that in the.
Yeah, we could do that in the try and get
Yeah.
the paperwork. So did you move?
I'll move we go ahead with this, as requested.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Make sure, I just think say, make sure that deed does have a reversion clause.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And with that being unanimous, the motion carries. Next on the agenda is issues at the Lincoln PSD, possible solutions. Is everyone up to speed on kind of what's going on at the Lincoln PSD?
I just keep getting calls from different angles, people being overcharged. It's that kind of
Not
stuff.
being able to get their water, or not being able to get water.
That bulk water
Yeah,
issue.
bulk water.
You know, we currently right now there is a I think this is all public knowledge, there are two complaints basically filed at the Public Service Commission. There was a complaint filed yesterday regarding bulk water. And just to, I don't know if you all probably have got that, have been down through the, received all the information, kind of like I received the information.
You may have more, but
I
I've
have,
received complaints.
you know,
I know they talked about putting a metered thing at the farmer's market. I know, I saw something along that line about the use for bulk water.
right, right. Well, the thing about it is, you know, I wanted to kind of get you all up to speed on this. If you wasn't, you know, if you didn't, you know, this has kind of been, it's been going on for quite some time. And what I was wanting to do was kind of find a, you know, kind of a start date when I received an initial phone call about the bulk water sales, okay? So what I did was, I consulted Mary and asked her, you know, because the Lincoln PSD, all PSDs are to send us, the county commission, an agenda.
We're supposed to get their minutes and an
Yeah.
audit report.
Yes, every month. Mary, I think the last agenda that we actually received was in April. And what I was trying to do was, I was trying to figure out at what particular, you know, what day that this was brought to my attention, okay? So, and I remember it was after a meeting, and I was trying to find basically what meeting, because when we came in here, you know, it would be something that you all would probably want to know. When did the bulk water, you know, was service cut off to customers for bulk water sales? And so what I did was, I got the meeting, I got the minutes and the, you know, the agendas for the May 29th meeting. There was an agenda for the May 29th meeting. There was a special meeting on June the 8th. But, you know, what I was doing was just trying to get everything that I could, you know, and try to find when it started. But this didn't actually occur, you know, they didn't cut off bulk water sales until June the 26th. Okay? That's when I received that phone call that night. And what I did was, basically I was looking through the agendas, and I didn't see that on the agenda, okay? As I was going through, the issue with the bulk water sales didn't appear on the agenda until July the 24th, okay? Which is, it says July 24th meeting. So it's almost an entire month. And the issue was, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what has happened, you know, what is going on, and, you know, is there anything that we need to do, or that we can do? And that's what I was, you know, trying to talk to you all about. I mean, you've been at this a little bit longer than I have. I couldn't, you know, I don't know if, whenever you look at, you know, you're cutting people who are paying customers, that's you know, the two complaints that are filed, that's what they're saying, paying customers. And, you know, the action that was taken, you know, was obviously not taken, you know, was not put on the agenda. It was not,
Not much forethought.
and,
Well, as far as that particular forethought, I think when this was done, there should have been an alternative plan for those people that use those waters.
I agree with that.
You know, I mean, there should have, when they made the decision, and I think there's two questions here, whether, you know, I think that the decision as far as whether it was done in the proper manner as far as the state code, you know, whether those things, you know, you evidently couldn't find where it had been turned off prior to an action by their PSD, as far as I can tell. But, you know, I also think too, when that decision was made, there should have already been in place an alternative system for these people to get, or an alternative way they could get to water.
Right.
And that's a problem too, I think.
But I think they forgot why they're there. But, you know, the public service district is there to provide water to the public. And it seems like somewhere they've lost sight of that, and that can happen, but somewhere they need to refocus.
Yeah, and I think there was some concern as far as, and I don't remember when I got this or whatever, but there was some concern that out-of-county people were getting the water and they may have been getting it for nothing or something of that nature instead of being charged for it. There's a question of whether they can actually legally give out water without charging for it, I think was one of their questions. But I think the end point is that this information we have, if we, you know, if there's a possible violation of open meeting laws or the way the agenda should have been set and things like that, that we should ask the, you know, whomever, if it's a prosecutor or whomever, if that's a concern of ours, for them to address it. So,
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong of the county commission asking the PSD board to come to a special meeting or the regular meeting and let's have a dialogue. What happened, let them tell us what they did, and if we got questions, let's get answers to.
Do you agree with Dr. Vance about the violation of open meetings law?
I think so.
But I would like I say, I would like the prosecutor to turn that. But I agree with Charles. I wouldn't be object to them coming and explaining their side of it, and then we can look at it and say, well, you know, this sounds okay, or this doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then I think we need to have the prosecutor look at it himself and see if, you know, because that's the, you know, that's the crust of the problem is, you know, number one, we want to make sure they act within the confines of the law. And number two, I'd like to talk to them about why they didn't have an alternative plan available to these people if they were going to just shut it off.
Well, I think, and speaking of the devil,
Or the prosecutor.
the prosecutor is here.
Persecutor.
And that was one of, we were talking about, you know, some of the issues going on with the local PSD. There, you know, there was some decisions that were made to actually cut off bulk water sales, not being on the agenda. Most people didn't know about it, hearing about, you know, word of mouth. 2 complaints are filed right now with the, you know, Public Service Commission regarding that. And, you know, and it was, you know, Dr. Vance brought up open meetings laws and that, you know, referring this to you, what would be the course of action that the county commission would need to take if there would be?
Well, and we also discussed having a PSD come
Right.
before us and explain their actions and things like that.
Right. Well, yeah, that, first of all, I don't know anything about what you just said as far as what they did or
Well,
how they did it.
Well, no, you're coming in halfway through. Anyway, on June, I think it was June the 26th, I received a phone call from customers that, from a few customers, that there would be no longer any bulk water sales, okay? And anyway, events transpired, you know, and as of right now, there are not, okay? That decision was made on June the 26th. And of course, I was trying to, as I was looking through, going through this timeline, you know, I didn't find it. I mean, we have the only agendas that we have here are the agendas that go to April. We don't have any other agendas. And it seems like, from what I've gathered, that there have been many meetings with the, you know, regarding, you know, the Lincoln PSD, where there were minutes that were kept. But
Where there weren't.
well, there was not an agenda, but there were minutes that were kept. And there were some that were, you know, there was an agenda with minutes. I mean, it's just, but that was kind of the,
And the thing you found in your review though was in July they had it.
yeah, in July the
24th.
July the 24th, they actually put it on the agenda.
That
But
was
they
a
took
month
action,
after.
yeah, a month after they took action. Now,
The question is, was that decision one made by management Or
That
was
was-
it one made by the board?
That was made by the board. There were two members of the board there, from what I understand, and they made that decision. There were not. And, you know, Doc Vance was talking about maybe sending this to you, if there's any possible wrongdoing. What, you know, what were the steps, what would we need to do?
Well, it depends on, well, I think the commission probably is going to want before making any decision or considering any action as such, going to want to have as much information as you can have. So whether you do that by an inquiry that you appoint someone to do, or one of you to do, or whether you want to do it in the context of meetings and calling people before the commission at meetings, I think you could choose, you know, between either of those. You know, and once you feel like you have complete information, you may already, you know, you've made some inquiry, whether you feel that you've made a sufficient inquiry or whether you think additional facts or information might be advisable, you know, again, that's your decision. But if you think additional facts or information would be advisable before taking any action, then again, whether it be one of you, whether it be someone you appoint to look into, or whether you decide just to call people before the commission, you know, in an open meeting and do it in that manner. That's your choice. If you're concerned that there may have been in some fashion improprieties, if you are concerned that there's any possibility that there may be any potential criminal penalty attached, if it goes in that direction at all, you know, discretion sometimes is important in terms of getting people to open up and give complete information, and so I'm not sure that an open meeting is conducive to that. If on the other hand you want to, let's say, right the ship or try and accomplish an attitude adjustment, you know, things of that nature, sometimes getting called on the carpet in a public meeting is the thing to do. You know, so it really, it depends on what direction you think ultimately it could go, what you think based on the information that you do have. But if there's any consideration, for example, of removal of one or more board members, I think on a prior occasion I sent an email, if not a memo, I can't really recall which, that outlined the procedure and that I brought. Of course, all of the public, the public service districts framework, powers, duties, all of that is in Article 13A of Chapter 16, which I didn't have access to a book last night when I was working on it, so I printed off a couple sections, but I went ahead and brought Chapter 16. There are quick rundown duties. Of course, shall organize within 30 days following the first appointments. I don't know how long Lincoln PSB's been in existence. What's that?
It's a long time.
Back in the 50s.
No kid. And then there are, at their first meeting, they elect a chair, appoint a secretary and a treasurer, who need not be members of the board. Then there's several duties. The secretary keeps a record of all proceedings which shall be available for public inspection. Duplicate records shall be filed with the county commission and include the minutes of all board meetings. I don't know if they've been doing that.
The last agenda that we received was the April agenda.
Of course, the agenda is not the minutes of the meeting.
Right, I understand.
And they're supposed to be filing duplicates of those with the county commission. Treasurer's lawful custodian of all funds shall pay out, pay the same amount of orders authorized and approved by the board. Treasurer shall furnish bonds. Members of the board shall make available to the commission at all times all its books and records. And lastly, the board shall meet at least monthly. Those are all the shall duties that are listed in the code. As far as removal, reasonable cause is what you have to have, which includes but is not limited to failure to attend meetings, failure to diligently pursue the objectives for which the district was created, failure to perform any other duty, either prescribed by law or final order of the Public Service Commission, or for any malfeasance in public office. And so, I don't know whether you think any of what you are aware of would rise to that level, or whether the commission would consider going in that direction. But short of that, you're probably, in all likelihood, looking at trying to maybe change somewhat the way things have been operating. Whether you think there are a number of things that collectively are sufficient to pursue removal of any board member, yeah, I don't know, but
My concern was, Jim, that water was shut off and there was no alternative for these people. You know, they didn't offer them, well, we're gonna shut the water off here because the law says we have to, or whatever the reason would be. But
and when you're talking about water shut off, you're talking
for
about
the bulk people,
Okay.
the people come in and get their water monthly or weekly or whatever, how they
And
do
had
it.
been doing it for years.
And had been doing it and paying for it. I assume paying for it.
Well,
I don't know.
that
There was
was-
some question whether they were paying for it, I guess, or it was brought up by one of the board members, but, you know, I don't know that to be a fact. But that,
To expand on that a little bit, you know, the people that I talked to were paying, you know, they assured me, you know, we pay for this, you know, there
Now,
is
how
a,
long ago was that cut off?
it was on June the 26th.
So we're
June
talking
the
about more
26th.
than a month ago.
Yes.
And they still have no
They still have no
ability to
access to water.
purchase.
Now what I was going
And I find that to be
was
in
gonna say
violation
was-
of what the PSD is supposed to be doing. I mean, I do, I really feel that's the biggest problem I have with it is there's people over there that don't have potable water that depended upon it for years. You know, and that wasn't addressed, and that's the biggest problem that I see that we have.
Pretty cold hearted, it seemed to me.
And the issue of, you know, and that was some of the conversation that I had, you know, was, you know, why, you know, if you're saying it's, you know, that they're not paying for it, why it was, the conversation was, well, you know, the meter was broke. Well, you know, that's not really the fault of the customer. And, you know, just, the other issue was that maybe bulk water sales was not in the tariff for the Lincoln PSD. I don't know. I don't know that to be a fact. I don't know if it is or if it isn't, okay? So, you know, does that change the situation? If it, you know, if they're, you know, if they say, well, we cannot provide bulk water sales? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's
and-
the explanation or excuse you're getting after the fact.
Well, that was what I was, you know, initially.
Right.
And, you know, and until you know, that was my contention, well, until you know whether it is in the tariff or it isn't in the tariff, you know, you probably should allow these people to continue to get water, you know. make sure, you know, if you're worried about it being metered, make sure it's metered, fix the meter. Okay?
And the chairman of the board, the PSD, has been there several years. He should have known one way or the other.
Right.
How would you define what malfeasance means to the PSD?
I would say, we could look up a definition elsewhere in the code, or in case law, but without having done that, my impression would be that would be something that would go beyond negligence or, an innocent, you know, oversight of some kind, that it would require, it, not necessarily personal gain, although personal gain would immediately jump up, but, no, I think, that, you know, a conscious decision, probably not in, as the code says,
Making a decision not in the best interest of the public?
that's what I was looking for, where it says, diligently pursue the objectives for which the district was created. You know, would this single decision constitute malfeasance? I don't know. I'd have to look for a definition of the word, but,
But if there was an attempt, I'm not saying there was, but if there was an attempt at, say, we don't have the minutes and the agendas as was supposed to occur monthly, we're supposed to have meetings monthly and things of that nature, and document those things. And not having those, you know, what I'm looking at, I don't think the one decision, even though that was probably the worst decision,
Right.
because people lost water,
Right.
but I think what we have to do is look at the cumulative decisions that are being made, and are these in the best interest of those people in that PSD or not? And that's, you know, it's my thoughts that we need to have the PSD people come here and answer the questions of, you know, where are the minutes and the agendas? Why was there no alternative plan for water when they cut it off? And because I know or at least I remember some emails from one of the members that basically said we were breaking the law, so I had to quit it right then. Although this thing had been done for years and years and years, and people depended upon it. You know,
Right.
we're talking about people cooking, people drinking, people, you know, we give them safe potable water so they don't get sick or that they got enough to drink. And then all of a sudden this is done, and I don't know how many people are affected, but even if it's one family, you
Yeah.
know, that's detrimental as far as against what I think that PSD should be doing.
right.
And I would like myself personally to have them come before us. I do think I would make the comment that I don't think any one of us ought to investigate or go into this because there's already been there's basically been comments made that this one's out to get a person over there, or this one's out to do this to a person. And I don't think, because we will have to make a decision later about what to do about this, that if we do, once we have this meeting with them, if we feel that there's enough to have to investigate, we need to get someone outside of us three doing it. Because I do feel that that would come into the other person's defense, is if it was one of us going after him
Right.
or after them, versus what's best in the long run. Because that's what we're looking for here. We want to make sure, number one, these people get water. I mean, you know, whatever needs to be done. I mean, if we're going to have a meeting next Thursday, I still think there needs to be some conversation with Lincoln PSD about some kind of a makeshift thing so these people get water till we can decide on what to do.
Yeah, and speaking on, you know, what you said, I mean, when all these events were transpiring, you know, my conversation, you know, was, you know, why, you know, if you feel like that you're losing money by selling more water, you know, then raise your rates from that point. You know, if you feel like that, you don't know whether it's against the law, well, petition the PS Public Service Commission,
Right.
you know, to change whatever it is that you need to change, but still allow these people to have water. It's pretty adamant about it.
Yeah.
Still feel that way.
Mhm.
And you know, it's not, the issue that we got going on right now is affecting a lot of people in my area. And I don't know, I'm sure you all have received phone calls about various things. But I've received specific phone calls about the bulk water sales.
Yeah.
And, and it's affecting a lot of people. And I was hoping that in the, as they were trying to work through this, because you want to give that board autonomy so that they can work. But, as they work through this, that they would, open that up. You know what I'm saying? Provide an avenue for these people to get water. And that hasn't happened.
And here are 6 people spending, I can't like 6 people, spending their time dealing with it
Right,
that shouldn't have to be
right.
spending their time dealing with it.
Yeah, these are things that,
It seemed like we just lost sight of what their purpose is. It's got into who's going to control, who's going to be the, and rather than can I be of help?
well, I was under the assumption that, if there is wrongdoing, I would like for the prosecutor to look into this. If there is any wrongdoing, he feels like that maybe there is wrongdoing, then what would be the action that what you would recommend that we should take if there was wrongdoing?
Well, that's a good choice of word, wrongdoing, because there's a difference between criminal wrongdoing and negligence, laziness, any of the other forms of activity or inactivity that could be called wrongdoing.
Well, I should say, in terms of
I think that's a good choice of words, because there are things that I might say, look, you can't tolerate this. Something needs to be done about this. This should not have been done, but it's not a crime. And so forth. So,
and I think,
Maybe inhumane.
well, I think that there's some things, there's a lot of complaints, and it's not criminal activity. It's maybe a personality conflict or something of that nature.
right.
And that's, you're gonna have that. But looking at the duties and responsibilities, if you feel like that they have violated their duties and responsibilities, with, and as far as maybe the open meetings law, as Dr. Vance is saying.
Well, that could be.
What would,
Well,
we need to, if you feel like, what I wanted to do, instead of us doing this, is allow the prosecutor to look into this. If there is, then take action. If there's not, then there's no action that needs to be taken.
But the action, ultimately, I may say, for example, that I don't think there is a criminal case that needs to be prosecuted. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't find that there were things that somebody needs to be held accountable for in some fashion.
Right.
But that's why I'm thinking, and I can understand, and I do think this commission, as I said before, should rely upon the prosecutor and possibly if an investigator is needed or whatever. But I would really like to have these members of this board come before us in a public meeting so we can direct these questions to them, and they can go on record as far as what they did or did not do and when it was done and things like that. And then that would give us much, because I really hate making a decision without hearing everybody's side. And I do think the people deserve also, not outside of wrongdoing and things like that, the people need to hear from this PSD why they did what they did. And because I've heard the reasonings behind, I've not heard it, but I have had emails from the PSD member that said why they did it when they did it, but I don't know who else got those emails, and I don't agree with some of the reasoning behind why they did it, and I definitely don't agree with the fact that they didn't have an alternative plan for this. But I think we also need to have them come before the commission And when we ask them to come before the commission, to bring all agendas and minutes with them that they have. And if they did not comply with the code, then we need to ask them why they didn't. Because I think everybody has an answer, I mean, they have an answer for things that we may not even think about, why things didn't happen or whatever, but I do think it's important that anytime you shut off service or affect a group of people, and to me, it may not have been arbitrary, but it appears to be arbitrary, and I think there should always be, and I think this is a good case to our other boards and our other people that we have representing the commission and doing things for the people, of how to do it and how not to do it. And I think that's the importance of getting them to get in here and talking to them and questioning them. Because we don't know for sure, but we also need to let everybody know what we do know as far as what should be done. And I think in several cases here it was not done.
Right.
So, but I would, like I say, I would really like to address that to the particular board member.
And that may be ultimately all you need to do, and that may be the quickest way to bring this to a head, and there would be a lot of good reasons for doing that. But I don't think that doing that and an investigation at the same time are going to be, they don't dovetail too well.
Right.
Because, you know, you can't pull them aside one by one, one-on-one in a small room and have a quiet conversation. Now, what's going on here at the same time that they're getting called in front of the commission in a public meeting? And that's why I say that, you know, you may feel like you have enough information not to make any conclusion or decision, but to make a call about which you think is going to, I'm not saying you can't do both, but I don't know that your investigation is going to be as productive or effective, you know, and trying to do it in terms of a timing issue. Because, you know, that's going to be the quickest thing. You may have a meeting, or you can call a special meeting like that, call them all in, and, you know, boom, you know, you hit it head on all together in an hour or two's time. You know, you may accomplish what needs accomplished, but you really don't know for certain, of course, that that's the case. But to schedule individual meetings and call, and somebody out there talking to a lot of different people and gathering all this information is, you know, on the short end, probably several weeks or more of a process versus you have a meeting, you call everybody in, and boom, what do you got to say for yourselves?
Well, and I have no problem if you feel more comfortable with a mini investigation or whatever prior to us calling a meeting. You know, we'll have more information, and
Right.
I'm for that. I'm okay with that too. Plus, I think, as you say, they give you more accurate information.
Right.
Then, but I still
And
think
you may
that,
have-
then I still think we need a meeting to
Right.
say, address some of the
What
concerns
about,
we
in
face.
the interim, is it possible that this commission could request or order that people are able to start buying bulk water due to health issues and all this?
I don't think that you can order. I think you
We
certainly
could-
could
we could-
request.
we could make a
ask about
request.
that, yeah,
And we should, I mean, you know.
And if they don't,
but the
you
thing
know,
about it is,
ultimately, that's, you know, another potential nail in the coffin.
well, I'm gonna, is it okay to make a motion?
well, I was gonna say something
Okay.
quick. I mean, you know, and one of the things when we're, you know, when we're talking about making a request of that nature, you know, whenever it was brought up, it was whether it is legal to sell bulk water. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? And regardless of whether you've been doing it for 20 years, it may not be legal.
Well,
You know, and that's the, you know, just like what you were saying, and maybe, you know, maybe they should have went and tried to pursue, you know, an avenue to try to, you know, correct the situation. And that's exactly what you were saying.
Well, because, you know, the comment, or it was written to me, was I'm not having anybody tell me to break the law. And we don't intend to tell anybody.
That's
to break the
exactly
law.
right.
But I think that it's this commission's responsibility to direct the PSD as far as we feel that, there's a health issue here with this.
Right.
And that it has to be dealt with as soon as it can be dealt with in whatever manner they can deal with it to make sure that the health of those people involved is maintained. And we're not asking them to break the law, we're just asking them to come up with an alternative plan in the meantime.
Right, file a petition to the Public Service Commission.
And until they can get it straightened out, because, and I think in the motion to ask them to address this situation, that we should also put in that motion the same thing, that we are concerned about the health of these individuals, not any other reason, we're not trying to, you know, whomever it is comes from out of the county that has a water supply company that fills up and things, I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is that these people that for years have gotten water there in this manner, then all of a sudden it's stopped. And what we need to do is ask them if that we feel that it's a necessity, that as soon as possible, that water be restored till we can determine the state of what's being done. And I don't think anyone in law enforcement or anything would have a problem with that.
What if we also maybe ask the health department to look into it from that side of it, that they may want to get involved?
Yeah, we could do that through a separate motion.
Yeah.
Well, but I'd also like to have our prosecutor look into if there was
Yeah,
anything that,
well, and I think
instead of putting it on us and bringing these people in, and then us trying to filter through, well, you know, is this legal, if this is not legal, it would be a lot better if we could go ahead and have.
Do you need a motion to do that, or
Yeah.
can you go ahead and look into it with that? Once we make a motion to do that, it's gonna say, we're looking into possible irregularities and things like that. Would that affect your investigation? I'm just talking about maybe documents being, something happening to them or anything like that.
Well, you know, in this case, I don't think you go into it with the expectation of finding anything of that nature, but you're trying to look at the things that have been brought to your attention that appear not to be in the best interest, not in the best interest of the operation of PSD and consistent with their statutory duties and responsibilities. And, you know, we can address each of those. And it seems like you've done
I've tried to do
some amount of,
try to do my homework so I could try to provide some type of backdrop,
so
because I know these guys.
So
are
I'll
in this district.
get with you and find out everything that you've seen and go from there, you know.
Well, this is just like the meetings, the minutes, the agendas.
Well, we could really make a motion to ask the prosecutor to examine the status of the PSD and leave it at that, and with the understanding of what all we're looking at, because these are multiple issues, and you know, and I know it's going to take some time to sort it out, but I think that's the best way to make the motion as far as looking at the status of the, and that would include, you know, whether they comply with open meetings, whether they do have the proper documentations and things like that, whether they made their decisions based upon what's possibly best for the people versus no reason brought forth and things like that. So, if you feel comfortable with that kind of way as far as asking you to look into the status of the PSD.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and motion to do that, ask the prosecutor to look into the status of the PSD.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That being unanimous, motion carries. Now, once you get your information, you know, will you be coming to report back to us, and then make a determination on, you know, what it is?
Going forward.
Yeah, what do we do going forward? But we probably need to send a letter
Yeah, we
To the,
need to have a
to
motion
address.
to address our concerns with the health status of those people. And we asked them to incorporate some kind of alternative source for these people as soon as possible.
It's simply requested.
Yeah,
Request.
and I'll motion that we go ahead and request the Lincoln PSD to provide an alternative source of water for those people involved due to the health reasons involved.
Within time frame.
Well,
As
I'd
soon as possible.
like to, if we could ask them to give us an update at the meeting, I mean, just to give us some kind of a letter update at the meeting, to have it available for our next meeting, so we know where they're at.
Right.
So I'll motion that.
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That be unanimous, motion carries.
Do we also want to, do we need a motion to ask the health department to look into it also?
You all
I think?
want to
Yeah, I
help
think we
department?
should request that they be briefed on what's going on and look and see if there's anything that they need to be involved in as far as the health issues of people not receiving water.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That being unanimous, the motion carries.
Let me get that last
Is that-
one. To
is
have-
that you or
That's
the-
me, sorry. To have the health department look into
This issue
just the
People,
issue.
the people involved.
not receiving public
Not
water
receiving public water.
from the book sales in the past.
And that's, like, Mr. D, like, they received bulk sales in the past. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to explain what they
Sean?
Can I ask a question of the prosecutor? Because I think this may be brought up by a board member. The fact that this entity is based in Kanawha County, does that
This
prevent?
entity is based in Kanawha County.
Yes.
Their offices.
located.
Their office is located in Kanawha.
I'm just saying that
They
because
serve, the majority of their customers are in Lincoln County. I should say probably, I don't know, roughly 95% of the customers.
I think that might be the first answer you get.
Were they created by the Lincoln County Commission or they
Yes.
not? Okay.
That just happened to be the property situated on the Cold River there. You know,
Okay, I'll have to look at that.
but Sean's.
Well, it's,
We've heard that before.
that would be an issue, but I mean, and that, as you go down the road, if there is anything that would need to be taken to circuit court, you take it to Lincoln, you take it to them all. It has to be elevated.
Excuse me.
Oh, good.
Well, I mean, I think this is-
Did y'all have a meeting last night?
Huh?
Did y'all have a meeting last night?
No.
Okay, because I don't know why I thought it was, a normal meeting yesterday evening, but when I left about 7:30, the lot was clear, and I thought, well, maybe it was a short meeting.
Fire alarm and all that stuff, it's like you already got a bad hour.
Okay, let me just recap this. We've got a motion to have the prosecutor look into the status of the PSD. We have a motion for the PSD, for us to write a letter to the PSD, having them come up with an alternate source of water due to the health concerns, and give us an update before the next meeting as to when they
As soon
can.
as
And it could be a written, it could be a written.
Yeah, we don't have to have.
We don't have to have them here.
In fact, to tell me we would just like a written
Written,
response.
okay.
Because, if we have if Jim's, going through this, we would probably want,
I'm sorry to interrupt. They're gonna test the fire alarm real quick. So okay if I close this door to,
yeah.
Yeah.
there's, the horn's just gonna sound
We're
once.
not gonna make any decisions while the door's closed, so yeah, go ahead.
Well, the camera's rolling.
And then the health department is to look at the issue of the people not receiving the water, the public water
From health concern.
from a health concern that they had received previously for years.
The bulk water.
Right, yeah, bulk, right.
And that will also allow us to make somewhat of the numbers, we'll know how many people are affected by this decision and things like that too, when they do that, so. And it asks whoever does that just to give us a summary letter on what we're finding.
I don't think that's,
We
I
just
think,
have-
They're having a fire
Fire
alarm,
test.
they wanted to shut the door, so we're not making any decisions. Sean's
I think
Sean's a
this is-
recordist to make sure we don't have.
this is all we can, basically, this is all that we have the power to do, as a county commission.
Well, and I think it's important that we we proceed in a methodical manner and make sure we get all the information in front of us that we can, and then make a decision based upon all the information.
If we have to make a decision.
Well, you.
We may not have to make a
And
decision.
you'd
We
think
may not have to do
that
it.
we should be working as a team, the PSD and the county commission, to get the service there. And that
Right.
seems like somehow we've lost that in the thing. Only other thing I'd have to say is, since the Public Service Commission is aware of this, maybe these communications that we've approved to send, we should CC those to the Public Service Commission, so they
I
have
think
that information.
Well, we need to, whenever this fire alarm's over, maybe we can put that in the form of a motion.
I just thought I had this.
And I'll
Because we
like to
can
take
open the
a
door, it's not
recess
that
here a
loud.
little bit.
It's really not that loud.
Okay, well, just,
I mean,
just go
it's
ahead.
like-
We'll just,
I would
It's called, it's ready.
probably.
You have celiac disease?
We are not watching.
Guys,
I
got
pity
to
you.
make
They asked me to
guys
open.
got to make a bunch of
They
that
can go to jail.
zucchini bread, about 10 loaves with,
Is that pretty good?
yeah.
Cause I mean, the food
I just
that I've been eating have been terrible.
that's VU, he's got that too.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, that's what
I
keeps
have
his
two
weight.
issues. One is if you